Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. I am Matt Jones. I am the Director of Corporate Marketing here at TrueCar, and I'm joined by Jeff Swart. He is the Executive Vice President and General Counsel here at TrueCar. And we are both incredibly excited to be a part of TrueTalk, a discussion about pride. To make this conversation as balanced as possible, we've invited a diverse set of executives from all across different sectors of automotive to be joining us. And they're going to be sharing their thoughts about pride, their thoughts about inclusiveness within our industry, and the road ahead. And I personally can't wait to get started. I'm feeling Jeff is feeling the same thing. But before we do, I would actually like to invite Jeff to kick us off with some opening remarks.
Well, thank you, Matt. Hi, everybody. I'm Jeff Swart, General Counsel of TrueCar. And before we begin today's panel, I'd just like to take a minute to personally thank all of you for joining us for this important conversation. We're here to celebrate Pride Month and to pay tribute to the stories and achievements of members of the LGBTQ plus community in the automotive industry. Pride Month also serves as an opportunity for us at TrueCar and elsewhere to have an open and honest discussion about the challenges that still remain. So in today's conversation, we hope to uncover opportunities to create a more inclusive environment for everyone within automotive, particularly the LGBTQ community. But this conversation goes well beyond today. At TrueCar, we believe in diversity in thought, experience, and perspective, and that those are critical to the success of our business. So we're committed to creating a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive workplace and inspiring change throughout the industry as best we can. In addition to today's Pride panel, we've held other events this year focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, including celebrations for Black History, Women's History, AAPI, and Jewish Heritage Months. These efforts have been led by members of our internal teams as well as our outside diversity, equity, and inclusion experts. We believe open conversations like this help make space for voices that are often not heard. They push us forward in creating a more inclusive environment as an organization and as an industry by being able to reflect and learn from one another. That said, we recognize that there's still a lot more work to do. So in addition to events like these, we're continuing to work on identifying ways to affect change within our teams, our communities, and our business to make a real impact. So again, a sincere thank you for joining us today. And on behalf of TrueCar, I'd like to wish you a very happy Pride Month.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Thank you. Like I said, I think this is going to be a great conversation. And I think that we got to take a second and really call out that we're kind of lucky. I think that, we're allowed to talk about diversity in a space like this, and we have an employer that allows us to do that and encourages it. And because we know that not everybody has this platform. So again, a big shout out to TrueCar for allowing us to have this conversation. Okay, so we want to get as much out of this panel in the time that we've got. So I think it's time to welcome all these guests on. So first, I'm going to bring on Mr. Owner and GM of White Bear Mitsubishi, Mr. Richard Harrell.
Hey, how you guys doing?
All right. Next up, I'm going to be bringing in the CEO and executive producer at D-Light Media, and he's a longtime automotive journalist. That is Mr. Sonari Glinton.
Hello.
And we have general manager at Rudy Luther Toyota, Ms. Debbie Tufts.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. I'm so glad that you're all here and able to join the conversation. A sincere thank you for taking the time to be with us and sharing your stories. But before we jump in, I think it would be nice. Actually, it'd probably be more than nice. It would be great if you give everybody watching the chance to just learn a little bit about who you are, because my little intro didn't do you guys any justice. So I'm going to ask you guys all to introduce yourselves really quickly, and let's start with Richard.
Well, hello. How's it going?
I've
worked at White Bear Mitsubishi for 25 years. I started as a cashier part-time in college and sort of worked my way up through the ranks. And now I guess I'm the owner. I've
Right.
had one employer my entire adult life, and so that's kind of crazy. It's here. So.
Oh man, that's awesome. Well, thank you for being here. Next up, let's have Debbie.
I have been in this industry 25 years as well. I started selling and I was buying a car, and the general manager kept encouraging me to come and sell cars. I told him I would try it for a year and see how it went, and here I am today. So
25 years later, right?
Yep.
Mr. Sonari.
Sure.
He was born 25 years ago.
Sonari Glinton, if you'd introduce yourself, or can you hear us? All right. Well, I'm going to go to Jeff for a moment because while we get Sonari's sounds working. Jeff, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm a lawyer on this panel, so in some ways, I'm on the outside of this industry and on the inside. I got involved. My whole perspective around automotive is only through the lens of TrueCar. So I've never sold a car on the ground, and I don't have the full perspective of the dealership. But I'm so glad to join this conversation, and thank you for letting a lawyer into the party.
Well, I think you'll keep us on our toes. And if any of these questions that we have, Jeff, if you feel that that your experience in automotive at TrueCar is limiting for you to answer that question, but you still want to answer it from a different lens, I think that would be more than okay.
Okay.
Everybody agree with that? Everybody on board with that? All right. Okay, so I think now that we all know each other, let's just jump in. Today's conversation is called TrueTalk, a discussion about pride. So I want to start with this question. What exactly does pride mean to you? And I think first up, between the three that are on board right now, hopefully the other two come in with get their technological problems going on. But let's go with let's start with Richard. What does pride mean to you?
Well, first I want to say, if we have a lawyer on the panel, a car dealer on the panel, don't we just need a dentist? And we have like all the things people would not want to, people don't want to work with. They just
at a congressman, we can have a real popularity congress.
Yeah, we just need a dentist to get started. But to me, there's a lot of controversy around pride. There's a lot of shaming of businesses going on right now about their inclusion of pride, and particularly if you look at some of the comments on the pride post that was made by car gurus on Friday, I was really disappointed about really how much work is left to be done regarding pride. And I'm sad that there's only one Pride Month. There's only 30 days that we can say we celebrate Pride, but Pride really is, a 365 activity for me. I mean, I'm engaged, I have a wonderful fiance, and I live my life every day, but it's no different than some of my heterosexual counterparts. But to me, Pride is a necessary thing for us to display, just because there's so much work left to do. When you look at the rates of murder amongst transgender women of color in this country, there's so much work left to be done. It isn't just gay, it isn't just bisexual, it's our transgender brothers and sisters in this community. We need to be proud to stand that there can be a gay car dealer, right? There can be a successful lesbian executive mother, happily married, which we have on this panel. It's possible to be successful and gay and a contributing member of society, but we need to claim our space. We need to claim our pride. We need to claim our rights. And it's cool that we're able to do that in an industry that may not be quite known for being as diverse, even though I know my organization, and I definitely know the Luther organization that Debbie works for, are very embracing of diversity, and I think we're the beneficiaries of that thinking.
Debbie, what about you? What does pride mean to you?
I think pride is a time to remember just to be kind to everyone. It's so easy to judge people based on their body shape or their sexual orientation or, so many different things. And it's just, I remember one of the first gay parades I went to in Minneapolis, it was just so heartwarming that people felt safe. It's a safe place to come out and be you and be proud, not have to hide every day. And so I look forward to it every month, and it fills me with joy and laughter, but it also fills me with a lot of sadness about all the work that we still need to do. So
understandable. Jeff?
Well, I think that it's interesting and really on point that that we call this a Pride Month as opposed to a Heritage Month or a History Month, although we've got heritage and history too, because I think in this movement in particular, the notion of pride is so essential to the concept of equality. And what I mean is like the pride that we're talking about here is not the kind of pride that has to do with being better than somebody else or the pride that has to do with winning some kind of contest. It's the kind of pride that's the opposite of being ashamed. And being ashamed is what so many of us were taught by people that loved us and that we loved, and by the larger society. We were sort of taught to be ashamed, and this is the opposite of that. So pride here is the kind of pride that says, I know myself, and I know myself internally, and I'm okay. I'm okay. So you need to be okay with me too. That's what this kind of pride is, and it's been so hard to come by. And I'm just so thankful to have lived in this era where we've made such great strides of progress, at least in this realm of the United States and even in the Deep South where I'm from. But we can't take it for granted, because there are so many around the world who literally fear for their lives and risk death penalty or imprisonment just for living honestly. And so that's why I think that, for me, pride is really important, and I'm really proud of what TrueCar is doing here, and I'm proud of seeing other corporations, we might say belatedly, but we'll take it whenever, stepping up to the plate, large and small, and recognizing that LGBTQ people need to be treated on equal footing. So that's pride for me.
You know what? I appreciate everything that you guys said was very personal, and I think it came across, and the comments that people have left. I have a feeling that this conversation is probably going to be a little bit bigger than we thought, because this is going to be very impactful. And I would like to be the first to thank the three of you for sharing that, because it's very personal. It's not always easy to talk about that, but let's talk about business for a second. And I think it's safe to say that everybody on this panel, all three of you, have reached a pretty enviable level of success. Now, we all know that hitting success it's never easy. But I think in these cases, you may have faced obstacles that some of your other colleagues haven't faced. So I want to talk about what unique challenges you've faced as part of the LGBTQ plus community in our industry. And I think we'll start with Debbie.
I feel like I've been somewhat blessed to, on a career path, not be hindered because of my being a woman in this industry, as well as being a lesbian. And so what I do find challenging a lot of the times is where my store is located. It's predominantly wealthy white people. And a lot of times, they'll see my wedding ring and see me and see my children and customers and ask about my husband. And I still have fear of correcting them sometimes, and it depends. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't. Sometimes it's pick your battles. But every day you come to work and it's that little pit in your stomach, that little fear pit that you wish you could say something, because you want to support the community. Because I feel like when they find out that I am, they're like, oh, well, you're pretty cool. You're nice. So it's that juggle. Like, do I correct them? Do I not? How do I get rid of this pit in my stomach? And I think that's the biggest challenge for me on a daily basis.
That's what about you, Richard? Would you like to chime in on this one?
Absolutely. I mean, I had an example 2 years ago, and it was something that I had to help one of our employees work through. We had an employee who transitioned gender while working for us, and this man worked in our Loop Bay, our express. It was a technician that worked for us, and getting the uniform vendor to print his new name, or he transitioned to a male, and when that occurred, the amount of pushback we got from the uniform company was just absurd. And it actually involved my service manager and I sitting down with the regional manager for this company saying, if you don't want to behave like this is important, you don't get to work for us anymore. And that became sort of a teaching moment, saying, hey, look, this is how this employee would like to be, addressed from now on. And it wasn't a big a deal in payroll. We could make that adjustment, and everything went so great. But then all it takes is one driver on a uniform route delivering clean uniforms to our technicians to have a personal bias to make it difficult for an employee to not put on a name that they don't identify as anymore. And to say that didn't dishearten me, I mean, it would be a lie. I was really disappointed that you could spend tens of thousands of dollars with a company and personal bias against people in our community would prevent them from just updating a name on a uniform. And, we obviously don't have that problem today because we corrected it, but I was sad.
What about you, Jeff or Sonari? Either of you, do you think you've ever had any unique challenges because of being a member of the LGBTQ plus community in this industry or any other industry?
Well, I have an example from the legal industry. So it's doesn't have anything to do with automotive, but I think that it translates to other spaces too. So I'll tell it. When I very first began my legal career, I didn't know, sort of like what Debbie commented on picking your battles. I hadn't gotten a very strong, my sea legs under me about when I was going to pick battles and not. And I was a litigator. So one of the early things that happens when you're a litigator is that you try to learn how to settle a case. And we had a settlement conference. So this is when you meet with lawyers on the other side and you try to see if you can wrestle to some kind of agreement to resolve the litigation and end the court case. And I was there with a partner at the firm, and I'm a very junior person at the table. And the lawyers across the table, either because they were wanting to make me uncomfortable, in which case they succeeded dramatically, or just because they were jerks, all of these sort of gay jokes kept coming out. I mean, it was fag this and anal sex that, like as though that was kind of the icebreaker. And I wanted to say something, but I also felt like maybe it wouldn't be in service of my client to make the conversation about me, and I just didn't do anything. And finally, the partner, it happened about the third time, and he shut it down. He said, it's about enough of that. Your jokes aren't funny. We're here to settle the case or not, and we're not going to have any more of this. So then and then we worked on the case and had a long meeting. It was not much about that anymore. Then afterwards, I had a feedback session with the partner, and the partner said, Jeff, I have to tell you, part of how you handled that settlement conference was a disappointment to me. And I felt terrible. I said, what did I do wrong? He said, when people talk like that, and you being you, I don't expect you to just sit there and take it. And he said, so I stepped in, but that's the last time I want to have to step in. If that ever happens again, you need to stand up for yourself, because we don't put up with that at this law firm. And that speech to me helped me grow some backbone that I really needed, and made me feel, so much a part of the fabric of the firm and valued just that one incident. And I think that, given the position that, Richard and Debbie and Sonari and all of us are at this point in our careers, when you have the opportunity to do that for somebody else who's being picked on for whatever aspect of their personality is there, it could be transformative. So, I carried that for years. And so you never know how much good you can do when you take a chance like that.
That is incredible. Jeff, I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm glad that you were willing to jump in this story that had nothing to do with automotive, because that is an eye opener. It shows that it's not just obviously the conversation, as you said in the beginning, the conversation is much, much bigger than just automotive. This is a landscape conversation. So thank you. Sonari, did you want to jump in?
Well, I guess what's interesting to me is that for me as a gay person, I feel like the problems are always intersectional for me, right? So my worst experiences some of my worst professional experiences have been with groups of, there's a group of gay journalists, or journalists and other folks who have a party, get together. And like often when I'm with like a group of gay journalists or gay folks in general, there's like something obscenely racist said. Like I'm like, I can almost set my timer to it during the Detroit Auto Show. It's like, I'm going to come to the party for about this long because somebody's going to say this thing. And there it is. And then like the last time, I just think like arguing with someone, a pet peeve of mine is, I don't know, the only thing you got is your name. No matter what it is, you should just respect it. And even if I work at NPR or whatever, that doesn't give you like room to make fun of people's names. And it was just like, I'm like literally arguing with a guy about whether Lakshmi was a popular name. I was like, it's probably the most popular name, but it's like that kind of like, that's a very benign example, but like a lot of like real grading. Like I say, it's like as a gay man, and I live in West Hollywood, so I'm used to it. I can see it. I see it happens a lot. It was like, the gay world is insanely racist, and so that's and it almost in my mind it sort of appears. So that makes sort of make fellowshipping with other gays sometimes difficult. But then on the other side, I think of professionally in my career, probably the biggest advocates for me have been gay folks. And I think I'm literally wearing a t-shirt that I made for Ari Shapiro. It says, Ari Shapiro is my co-pilot. It's on sale at the NPR shop if you want to. That was a not subtle plug, but I was wearing it. But I made it because it occurred to me that like he had come out in like 1997 and had been out the whole time that I was and when he is when he is that far out, out, it defined what I was able to do. And I think about also how important it is that literally probably one of my number one or two mentors were Netta Ulaby and Ari Shapiro, a gay man and a lesbian. Like that is literally, I was standing at a gay conference and Ari goes, "Aren't you in public radio? Come over here and sit with us." Like literally, like, and I think about how grateful I am because by being out, he didn't punish me for being gay, right? And that's the good part about being out is that you can actually open a door and keep it open for others.
I love it. It's one of the things that I think that all people who find themselves in any sort of DEI component, a lot of them are looking for a mentor or somebody to help guide the way, or somebody to open the door, or somebody to justify, hey, it's okay to be this thing. And so to hear that it's pretty powerful. One of the things that we think about I think this is coming more and more prevalent in conversations is, everything that you guys all pointed out was like big, those were major events, you can hear them, but microaggressions, and microaggressions are conversations that, that are becoming more and more prevalent. For people who are watching the show who don't know what a microaggression is, it's when somebody says something or does something and they don't necessarily have any ill intent, but they do something to point out that you are slightly different in some sort of way, and it makes you feel in a negative way. So it's just by a show of hands, I could say that I've felt microaggressions besides the big stuff. Has everybody felt have you ever seen it? Have you ever taken part of it? Yes, it is.
I have microaggressions against myself. Come on.
And when we talk about these really big, overt discrimination incidents, we can chalk that up to a person who's just maybe not necessarily, they're just not in this normal time. But those microaggressions are the ones that just really poke, and stick with you. But so I think that, as we look to make sure that we're all better stewards, we also make sure that we call out, just like Jeff's partner said, hey, when somebody's talking out, try to correct them, especially when it comes to things big, like the events that you talked about, and the smaller things like the microaggressions, because again, those folks don't necessarily mean harm. See, and that's why this conversation is so important. I mean, how do you fix the problem if you don't know that you have it? And what we're trying to fix here is the idea of inclusivity in our brand, in our auto and beyond. So, but I think what we need to do is be very clear on what that means. So my next question is, what does inclusivity mean to you? And I'm going to start that with Jeff.
Well, I guess I would say inclusivity means to me is that you have genuine respect, and if you can conjure it up into your heart, and then even if you don't, you act with respect for all differences. So race, gender, sexual orientation, backgrounds, religions is all genuinely respected, and we do not allow that to interfere with the work that we're here to do together. And I think that example I gave earlier, that for me is with my law partner, was an example of what real inclusion means. It's a message that I recognize that you have a difference about you, and you're still part of this family, or this business family, or this community family. To me, that's what inclusion is.
Does anybody else want to chime in? Sonari?
Inclusion to me means money. It's like it's money left on the table. Hollywood leaves billions of dollars on the table. The auto industry leaves billions of dollars on the table because it doesn't include. Like you think of the opportunity. It's not instead of, like, I think we think of inclusion as being a problem to fix instead of like this incredible, like, I don't know, if you don't have a black woman selling cars, you're missing something, right? You just are. If you don't have, we only have Frank Sinatra's of the world in the car world. There hasn't yet been the Beyonce of, say, car design, right?
Right.
Like that is in a world in which we are open to, I want to live in that world, by the way, where there's a Rihanna of car design and a Bob Dylan. No shame on that. I want all of it, but I don't just want Bob Dylan. And what that means is reaching out to your customers. I think of, at the beginning of this century, Toyota had the problem where they put a gold tooth on a guy and got people really upset because there was no one in the room to say, oh, that's offensive. Over the years, they have shown that I truly believe that Toyota became the number one brand in so many areas because it solved in many ways those marketing problems. And at one point, they were the number one. They had a marketing agency for each major demographic, right? Because they were looking, because in that way, when you see the dollars on the table, if you're, the auto industry is not going to get less competitive in years to come. So you need to get all the ideas and all the people. And it's the opportunity that it's like, don't you want the Beyonce of car design? Like that, don't you want to work? That is what inclusion is working to make that happen and make that possible. I think to me, that's what inclusion really is that not just Sinatra and Bob Dylan, but
a lot bigger. Beyonce. Debbie, Richard, either of you want to weigh in?
Hey, I think they covered it for me.
Yeah, that's great.
Just about the money part, Paul Walzer, he is the 2021 NADA chairman. And in his opening remarks for NADA, the show this year, one of the things that he said was that diversity is actually good for business. I wrote this quote down. It's good for business. Diverse teams have a broader range of experiences, knowledge, and skills. And diverse teams produce higher quality solutions, and they do it faster. So, just to connect with your point, Sonari, there's even for the folks who don't really believe in inclusion or inclusivity, there's money there. So for the hard hit, like the people who have a hard heart, the Grinch heart we're watching right now, and there's still money there. So consider it. All right. So thank you guys for all of that. We want to jump into the next couple questions. I think that we need to talk about, we all understand why it's important, but I guess the next step is like, what do we need to do in order to make our industries more inclusive and more equitable for everybody? So we know that we want to get there, but what do we need to do? So I want to start that question off, if I may, with Debbie.
I put a lot of thought into that because it's a big question that kind of says easy but does hard. And I think it's just got to talk about it. You got to, I added a rainbow flag and a she, her to my signature for my, on my emails. We're donating to a lot of local LGBTQ plus programs in the community. We're correcting people, employees as they make comments or, maybe say something inappropriate. So a lot of coaching opportunities, and just be kind to everyone. Kind of like Jeff said, treat everybody with kindness. It doesn't matter. And I just think baby steps. You just got to start talking about it. You got to start, just letting people know that you're friendly. I just emailed my HR department to find out if we could get a pronoun blank put on our application, our employment applications for, people applying for jobs. So just thinking outside the box a little bit.
Richard, what about you?
I think a lot of what Debbie's talking about is perfect. I mean, making people feel included isn't, it isn't just one thing. It's a list of deliverables every single day. It's making sure that a trans man feels comfortable working in a service department full of people that were born biologically male, right? It's making sure that, your gay employees, your lesbian employees, your bi employees, everyone feels like they have a spot at the table, and everyone's able to respect differences. And I think it even goes as far as being able to respect people's political differences and set them aside at work. I mean, to me, I found myself within this last year, making a comment or two that upset a particular employee, and I really had to back myself up and say, you know what, it's not my place to say who can work here. It doesn't matter, if you're Christian or atheist, a Democrat or Republican, an independent, a moderate, a liberal, a conservative. None of it matters. Everyone has a seat at this table, because at the end of the day, we're not making oxygen here. We're just selling cars, right? And because we're just selling cars, it's like our customers deserve to feel like they can find themselves. So, Sonari's comment of, if you're missing a Black woman selling cars, you're missing something. And I think that's true. A dealership needs to represent their customer base, and that you need to be able to have people feel comfortable both on the buying side of the table and the working side of the table. And I think companies that listen, that respond with empathy when things go sideways, particularly with an employee or a group of employees regarding things that are said, those are going to be the companies that win in terms of making people feel included. And then the last part, piggybacking off of Sonari's comment, money. I mean, you have to have equity in what people are paid. Men and women need to be paid the same. People of color need to be paid the same. People of all sexual, orientations the same. There shouldn't be, your pay plan shouldn't see color, race, or any of that.
Sonari?
Oh, I was just thinking that that probably the when you think of what we can do as gay and lesbian people, I think there is a the good gay boy syndrome, to like of sort of being the good Boy Scout and not necessarily like causing a stink because you've climbed up to this level of whatever corporation you've gotten to. But I think that sometimes it's amazing how much power we can have by just like being honest. And I mean, I actually think for me, being honest and factual and getting involved. I mean, like I was a union, at NPR, for instance. I was like, I should be at the table. Like I ran for union rep and stuff like that. So when people were like, I was at the table. And I think that there is as the world is changing and as the rest of the world grows and catches up, there's actually, I feel like we as, queer folk have to, I don't know, stay ahead, like take up more space, think bigger, think outside of the limits. Not that we're wrong, but if the world's going to change, we have to, change ahead of it because, and take up that space that might be there for you now that might not have been there before. So,
Jeff, is there anything that you'd like to contribute?
Well, I mean, I don't know how to reform the automotive industry, but I think that the sense that wherever we are, that we just take up, you can make difference, you can make change by making a million small decisions of am I going to speak up or not going to speak up? Am I going to take this chance or not take it? If you just take it, then it adds up. And I think that it's a lot of movements, but in particular this movement, that it's not success that's built on heroes. I mean, there is no John Wayne hero of the gay rights movement. It's a community. It's a lot of people taking a stand where they were that collectively forced change by changing hearts and minds over time. And so we can't leave that to others. We have to find that opportunity wherever it presents itself and make change incrementally.
You know, and you said something, Jeff, that I want to touch on a little bit bigger. You said it wasn't one person, it was a lot of people, right? And I think about, you know, we're talking about an industry here. We're talking about work here. You know, we're talking about like in a very small way, economics. So let's talk about companies, because companies are made up of a lot of big people, or big organizations of lots of little people. So could we think of any examples that companies, either big or small, are doing right now to try to create, you know, a more equitable environment for everyone? And I have to start this question to Richard.
Well, I mean, you know, an example that we do. So every year we sponsor Gay Pride and in the Twin Cities, and every year I wrap a Mitsubishi in rainbow colors, or we do a rainbow of Mitsubishi in the parade or whatnot. And this year I pre-wrapped a new 2022 Mitsubishi Outlander in rainbow colors. And one thing I did is, instead of it just being displayed or driven in the parade, I gave this Outlander to every single employee that wanted to drive it. And it was so cool to see all the pictures on Facebook and Instagram of these employees living out and proud with a gay Mitsubishi. And, you know, it had our bear and our brand on it and whatnot. And it had a rainbow flag that didn't just have 6 colors in it, right? It's a more updated version that, you know, includes members of the African American community and whatnot, because that's part of who we are, right? The Gay Pride just isn't 6 colors. It isn't just white people, right? And we got so many positive comments about that, and it's fun to see that. Now, other businesses, like, you know, when I fly, it's fun to go down the jet bridge and see a picture of a gay couple sitting on a plane. Like,
yeah.
It just, as a kid, I just never thought that a company like Delta would mass market sexuality or inclusion, right?
Right.
Wells Fargo, I mean, you know, they say Happy Pride when I put my ATM card in, probably because I ordered the rainbow ATM card, right? It wasn't because they have a personal relationship with me. It's, I checked a box saying I want that card, right? But it's a nice gesture, but
Right.
It's not as bold as Delta, because that marketing is for the world to see, right? The direct marketing to me, just saying, hey, Happy Pride Month, hope your rainbow debit card gives you money, right? It's great, right? But I think Delta is taking a bigger stand.
Right. Does anybody else have any examples they could think of some companies that are doing some things to promote inclusion or equity in this industry or outside of it?
Well, I'll give a dumb example, which is Quaker Oats had partner benefits in 1985. And I always think that along with, that is amazing. And it's like one of the things that it shows, like, just like how it's like such a part of the family and the community there at that company, which is now bought by Pepsi. But that they had, which, you know, that meant that they had generations to get gay leaders. You know, the head of Tropicana was gay. You know, there was several, you know, people who like got to very high places. And I think that was an example of a long tradition and it bearing fruit, you know, decades later.
I think that's fantastic. My eyes almost popped out. Nothing against Quaker. I just, the year that you said, it was just really surprising to me. Does anybody else have anything they want to jump in with?
Toyota, for the first time this year, is flying the flag at all their headquarters. And I have a couple of employees that work for the Chicago region that made a comment that they were just really, it made them feel very, very peaceful. So
yeah, I think it's awesome. You know, when we expect the big companies to go out of their way, we expect, you know, the things that Wells Fargo, you know, did, Richard. I think that we kind of, you know, expect those things. But Richard, I just wanted to, you know, give you a special shout out, because obviously you don't have to do what you did, but it's also an example, I think, of a company that's not this megalithic thing, going out there and showing support on a real grassroots, real local level. And I think that's really important, because what we've seen in some of the other, like when we talk about supporting the military, we talk about supporting other DEI efforts. There's sometimes a pervasive feeling that you got to spend $1 billion in order to do that. And what you've done with your story is shown it doesn't have to be $1 billion. It could take a couple money, but it could take some heart and some effort and some thoughtfulness, and really make a change in the community as to like what you're really standing for. And so I applaud all of those. We're any opportunity that a person or a company can take, no matter how big or no small, as long as it feels genuine, I think it just moves the needle forward. And so
it can create a conversation. I mean, the mother of an employee that took this Outlander home took it to her lake home for the weekend, and her mom was driving around, and she noticed a pickup truck came by and was taking pictures. And it was interesting because her mom posted a picture of this rainbow Outlander and saying, I don't know if the person was taking a picture of it to post good things or negative things about it, but I'm a straight mom, but I'm proud of my daughter.
Right.
And she said, so you might make assumptions about me for driving it for the short period of time, but it was just interesting that, her mother is posting it on her social media feed to create a conversation with her friends and followers about, hey, I can stand in support and in solidarity with my daughter by driving this. And, in northern Minnesota, it's probably not the most diverse part of the state, right? But it's creating conversations. It's opening people's minds. And, it's sometimes positive, sometimes negative, but it's creating a conversation. So thinking back, what Quaker Oats did in 1985, they were creating a conversation about employee benefits, right?
Right.
Putting a rainbow on a car and having your employees drive it. That's creating a conversation amongst their friends, their family, their neighbors. And that's what it takes.
I think that illustrates so well what I was trying to say, probably inarticulately, about taking the opportunity, making a decision, even a small one, that affect change. Because I mean, I'm not in your checkbook, but I assume it'd be pretty easy for White Bear Mitsubishi to just stroke a check to the Pride Committee and feel like that you're done.
Mm.
And that'd be a nice thing. But when I imagine the signal that it sends to your employees, and to see that car driving around, have a chance to drive in that car, and the conversations that it's prompting all around the community, that is a decision that has consequences, and that's so I think that illustrates through what I mean about how we affect change is through a lot of small decisions, one at a time.
Yeah, and even Lexus is taking it a step further. I mean, there's a local automotive journalist, Randy Stearns, who does a lot of writing. Lexus provided him a vehicle just for Pride Month, right? And there's tons of photography of this beautiful Lexus with a rainbow flag on the back. I mean, you think about it, it's just kind of like, all right, years ago, when you thought about car companies that thought about inclusion, it was Subaru, right?
Yeah.
It was Subaru, and Subaru. And now you see companies like Toyota, like Lexus, and local dealers. Our landscape is changing in the automotive space because automakers are starting to realize that gay people have money too. I mean, they do.
So would anybody like to volunteer if and forgive me if I'm getting ahead of myself with this question, is like, we've talked a couple about steps that the companies have taken, but does anybody have any examples of steps that they've taken in their day-to-day life to help, make the world a bit more inclusive? And I'm gonna start that question with Debbie, and hopefully I didn't catch you off guard. Share an example of how you've taken steps to be more inclusive in your day-to-day life. I
think part of it is with the email pronouns for me was kind of, putting myself out there so people know that I'm a safe space. Personally, just in getting involved with a local organization, local 501c3 nonprofit called Queer Space Collective, which is setting up mentorship programs for LGBTQ plus youth. So I'm actively involved in that. I don't know. I try to be kind to everybody I meet. I try to look them in the eye. I try to ask them how they're doing and really care about them, and just let them know that I'm a safe space to come to if they're ever needing someone to talk to.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Matt, can we use this to piggyback the conversation about the importance of pronouns?
Oh, you know what? You know I was going there. I just wanted to see if anybody else had anything to jump in because that was my next question. Anybody else have anything they'd like to say? Okay, I got a question for y'all. All right, it's going to be a very easy question. Let's talk about pronouns. Yeah,
Yes.
Richard, kick us off.
Well, I think pronouns are the most basic way you can show respect to someone. And by that, I mean, whether someone identifies as, him, him or, she or they or them or whatnot, it's their preference, right? Matt, it would be like me saying, when you introduce me as Matt, right? Or say, hey, my name's Matt. And I go, great, Matty, nice to meet you, right? Or Jeff, I meet you. Jefferson, was a pleasure talking to you, right? The absurdity of that should become so clear, right? If a person would like to be referred to as they or them, instead of saying he or she, that's just what you say. You would never refer to a Jeff as a Jefferson unless you plan to be a complete jerk, right? And pronouns they're personal, right? Just like my name. My name is Richard. It's not Rich. It's not Ricky, right? It's Richard. That's my name. That's how I prefer to be addressed. But when someone chooses that, and especially when you have customers, and I love Debbie's idea of the employee application having preferred pronoun. But we had a customer who identified as they, and we need to be good examples with our employees, because this customer texted me and said, hey, my license plates aren't in yet. Can you check? And so I texted my employee, Nancy. I said, hey, Nancy, Corey messaged me and they're wondering where their license plates are, right? Not him, not her, not whatever. Corey, they would like to know where their license plates are, right? It's not that hard, right? It might take a minute to just process it and remember it. But to me, giving someone their pronoun of preference is remembering a detail about them, like the name of their dog or their child. It's a respect. It's, I know you, I've heard you, and I'm going to address you the appropriate way.
Debbie.
Similar too, like I've been working on, and it's habits like, hey guys, no, how about hey all, hey you, it's just practice, and it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to goof up and correct yourself. And it's really, yeah, people are asking, why do you put your she, her behind your name? And this aha moment, like Richard said, like that's absurd that we don't have a neutral way to, call people out. So it's been very interesting, the response I'm getting from a lot of people that are very curious as to why I do that. So it's definitely a big conversation starter.
And it doesn't cost $1 billion to do either, right? It's pretty easy application, right?
Yep.
Well, I had a major company call me or talk to me about a call center, right? With whom do I have the pleasure of speaking, right? Or how would you like me to address you? Like, companies are starting to have conversations with what's the appropriate way to address somebody. Just because their account number or the phone number is linked to a dentist, right? Dentist may not prefer to be addressed to as sir,
Right.
right? Dentist may be preferred to, be addressed in a different pronoun. And we have to be open to the possibility that's going to change. All of our inbound marketing, all of our outbound marketing. I mean, we may need to shift how we think.
Jeff, Sonari, do either of you have anything you want to weigh in with?
Well, I just think I'm glad that Debbie says it's okay to make a mistake. I find this hard to get right, and I'm coming at it from a sincere place. But I have a transgender nephew, and for 18 years it was Hannah and she, and now it's supposed to be Jaden and him. And I when I'm in a direct conversation with him, I can do it. But when I'm in a conversation with his mother, which is my sister, who is not really on board with this, it's hard to change that. And so it's a journey, and I trip it up. But I think that I'm going to take Richard's talk to heart, and even with my sister, try to be a little bit more firm about respecting Jaden's preferences more than I have been, because it's so important. So thank you, Richard.
My pleasure. Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
I was gonna just quote the great Jim Croce, like a pine tree lying on the winding road. I got a name. Like everybody, like we all, like you just deserve to be called what you know. And it's like so very basic.
Guys, I got to just say from the heart, I'm really glad that we touched on that question because I don't think it is quite as widely understood as it should be. And personally, I feel like I've learned some things, and hopefully the folks who are watching this or watching the replay will as well, because it is just very, very basic. Because if somebody walked up to me and said, "Hey, Maddie," I wouldn't dig that. I mean, seriously, I wouldn't dig that. That's like my business card says Matt, and so does my driver's license. Can you call me Matt? So really addressing how important it is to call somebody by the way that they want to be addressed, and not what we think. Whatever somebody thinks is. I think that's very important. So I'm really glad that we touched on that. I'm looking at the clock. It's 51. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this. Okay, so we are in the home stretch, folks. So we got a couple seconds left. So I've got one more question. I've got two questions for both of you guys, for all of you guys. And the first one is, what's the one thing that you'd like to share with people who are watching this call, who would call themselves allies or accomplices? Anybody who's watching now, live or in the future, what's the one thing that you'd want to share with that group of people? And I'm going to start that off with Jeff.
I'll just share that the little acknowledgments that translate to respect and inclusion can mean so much. And I'll just illustrate that with one that happened to me recently. And I'm 53, but I still need shoring up, And there's a senior vice president in our company. His name's David Green, and he, ex-Marine. He gets up 5 every morning, goes to the gym. I mean, there's no more of a man's man than this guy. And when Carl Nassib came out on the LA Raiders the other day and made the news, David just texted me the news story and just said, "Hey, brother, want to make sure you saw this." And that was all there was to it. But it meant so much because he saw out there in the news, made the connection. This would probably be something that matters to Jeff. I'm going to make sure that he sees it. And the subtext of that is also the signal and I care about you, and I care about you being part of this family. And that was just a text, and it's affirming. And so when allies have the opportunity to send an affirming signal, small as it may be, to people in this community or other minority communities, it really puts a spring in their step. And so if you're thinking, should I do it? Should I not do it? Just go ahead and do it.
That's awesome. Thank you, Jeff. And David Green is a fantastic human being. I'm going to go next to Sonari, if you have something you'd like to contribute.
I guess I would say the money thing. So if you look around and your team is monolithic, then you're probably not. You don't have much of a future. And really, it is. The auto industry is not going to get less competitive. And if I guess the scenario corollary, a friend of mine called that, is that if you have a 1950 structure on your company, it's not like you're going to just like slap on diversity onto that. Like, to me, it is part and parcel of being new and forward thinking, right? If you're like, it is a part of being a real company, because if you're just going to write off whatever percentage of the thinkers, consumers, people who can be on your team, then you don't deserve those extra sales, because they're going to go to someone else. And like I said, I want to see you want to see the Rihanna of architects or car designers, because that shows, like, just imagine, the difference that we're just missing out on. And that is, it's all about missing out on opportunity. That is what it is. It is every time you don't see someone different, you should be like, that's money that's burning.
I love that. Richard?
I would just say that behaviors and jokes matter. I mean, I had a vendor who was signing me up to work with them, and I just handed this vendor a $10,000 check, and some joke came up, and this woman said, "Oh, that is so gay." And I said, "No, when you say gay, do you mean like handsome, successful, and now your client?" And she said, "No, I meant it. It's dumb." Oh, well, actually, that doesn't help you either, right? So I just said, so in the future, when you choose to use "that's so gay," just remember you're talking about me, and I'll let this one slide, but do it again, and I'm not going to give you any more money. And people, you can vote with your money, right? And you can help coach conversations, and you can correct people. Like people say that's so gay. It's like, no, we're not about that. We're not going to accept that conversation. Use people's pronouns. Be respectful. And as an ally, look at it as, how can I make sure that it's Matt, not Maddie? And some people, and you think, just couch it in your brain. Some people prefer to be called by their middle name, not their first name,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's not anyone's place to pass judgment on how someone prefers to be addressed. First name, last name, male, female, they, them, their. It's just respect.
Awesome. Debbie, do you have anything?
Yeah, I think just take a minute and get to know somebody, like really get to know them and let them know that you're a safe space. I think so many times we ask someone how they're doing today and we've moved on before we get the answer. Just pause, take a minute, listen to people.
Great.
Jeff?
I think they've covered it.
You know what? Well, I'm going to say something I'm going to ask myself. This is what I'd like to say to allies, and that's what I'd like to say to accomplices. Thank you, first of all. Thank you. And second of all, use every opportunity. If you're the bigger, stronger voice in a room and you see that maybe there's somebody who's underrepresented, maybe encourage that person to speak up or talk for themselves, because as a marginalized person or a person who may feel marginalized, whether it's effectual or in their head, we need help, we need mentors, we need allies. When you have an opportunity, step up and do your part. And I can't believe that we are almost done, but we are. And what we wanted to do at the conclusion of this conversation is we wanted to show some folks or give some folks the opportunity to, hopefully they've gained some things from this conversation that they can apply in their own behaviors. Like Richard said, jokes matter, context matter. Debbie says, be nice. Jeff was talking about the partner who really, and David who put a spring in his step. Sonari was out there, you're losing money. I mean, when you think about everything that you've gathered from this conversation, there's a lot of action that a person can take. But if you don't know, if none of these things apply to you and you want to take action by maybe donating to a charity or looking to a charitable organization, and you don't know where to start, we have a couple suggestions for you. And so as we get ready to wrap up, I'd like to kick it over to Mr. Swart to maybe tell us a little bit about some of the organizations that we've uncovered that might be a good place if you got some extra money and you want to do the right thing.
Sure. I think 3 I'd mentioned that are worth looking into, and then you can make a decision for yourself whether they sort of fit your perspective or not. And the panelists will all be familiar with these, but the Human Rights Campaign and the Human Rights Campaign Foundation has done a lot of good work. And I think that one thing I like about them is that they understand the importance of equality in all respects. I mean, they sent out messages that I thought were important to the gay community, gay and lesbian community during the Black Lives Matter protests, which sort of about how important equality is for all. Because if any of us doesn't have it, we're not going to any of us have it for long. So check them out. Another organization I like a lot is the Trevor Project. It's suicide prevention aimed at gay and lesbian, transgender youth. And the rate of suicide in this population is so much greater than in the general population, and understandably so. And if these kids don't survive, then they can never thrive like we're thriving, and they can have a crisis moment, and that can be a lifeline to help get them through. So I think it's a very worthy organization. And another one that I like a lot, being a lawyer, is the Land and Legal Defense and Education Fund, which litigates important court cases to try to advance the movement for equality for this community. So check all of those out, and probably one of them will fit the bill for you, or maybe all of them. I like them all.
Thank you, Jeff. And as we get ready to wrap up, guys, what did you tell me, Debbie? I got to get better about that. As we get ready to wrap up all, I want to send a sincere thanks for the time that you've dedicated to this. Sincere thanks for your insights. I think that, based on the comments that we were getting in real time on Facebook, you have really impressed some people, and you really opened some minds. And I think for the folks who have been impressed and their minds have been open, I think the next step is to take action. If you're a $1 billion company, awesome. If you're a dude like me and you ain't got $1 billion bucks, but you got a couple friends, be a good friend. If you're somebody in a big shot in a meeting like Richard, well, we know Richard's always going to help out, but encourage the person with the smaller voice to make sure that they feel like they have a seat at the table. We can do a lot, and it doesn't have to cost a lot. We just have to decide we want to do it. So again, a sincere thank you to everybody on the team for joining us. A sincere thank you to everybody who watching now live or watching later. I think if we all just get together and put our heads together, I think we can really do some amazing stuff. So does anybody want to say goodbye besides just me?
Well, it's been such a pleasure. I wish I could meet all of you in person, but this was almost as good.
I wish I could give all you a bear hug, especially Debbie, because she's amazing. Matt, thank you for being who you are and putting this panel together. It was an honor that TrueCar felt it important to do a Pride Recognition Month, and I feel honored to have been included and be among such a great group of people. So
that's awesome. Thank you, Richard. Thank you. Sonari, you're amazing.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for having me.
And Debbie, you are fantastic, like Richard said. And hopefully this, like I said before off camera, hopefully this becomes the beginning of a nice long friendship relationship. Hope that our paths cross again. And with that, goodbye, everybody.
Hi.
Right, thank you.